How would you describe a difference between butterflies and moths? Maybe that butterflies are colorful and moths are rather plain looking? Or that butterflies are these beautiful creatures visiting flowers, while moths are chewing on sweaters in the darkness of your closet? It's not always simple to tell a butterfly from a moth, but there are some characteristics that are pretty reliable. Butterflies and moths together make up the insect order Lepidoptera. The name Lepidoptera comes from Greek, and it literally means scale-winged. Wings covered in scales is a feature common to both moths and butterflies. But what are the differences? First of all, let me ask you a question. Do you think there are more species of butterflies or moths? The answer is pretty unambiguous. 90% of lepidopterans are moths, while only 10% are butterflies. That is about 160,000 species of moths, and only about 15,000 species of butterflies. In fact, you can think of butterflies as a subgroup of moths. Shocking? Let's look how they're related to each other. This is a phylogenetic tree. I know, it's pretty complicated to get oriented if you're not used to reading them. But you can imagine it as a master chart of all Lepidoptera, grouped and arranged based on the closeness of their relationships between each other. It's sort of like a tree of life. You read it from left to right, going from ancestors to living members that evolved from them. In this tree, you can see that only this red section are butterflies, and the rest of the tree are moths. And here you can see that the tree suggests that butterflies are derived from moths. The oldest moth fossil comes from the Jurassic period, while the oldest butterfly fossil is much younger, coming from the Paleocene. While butterflies are a rather cohesive group, and with a few exceptions they're easy to define and characterize, it's not that simple with moths. You can think of moths as the leftovers in Lepidoptera after you exclude the butterflies. With their huge diversity, this makes moths difficult to characterize. So when we talk about distinguishing characters, treat them as a rule of thumb, rather than strict guidelines. The first and perhaps most reliable anatomical feature that is different between moths and butterflies is their antennae. Antennae serve as sensory organs. In butterflies, the antennae are wider or club-like at the tip. We call these clubbed antennae. In moths, the antennae are commonly thread-like and narrow all the way to the tip, but some species have these impressive feathery antennae. While we are on anatomy, notice the difference in the bodies of butterflies and moths. Most moths are somewhat bulkier and have a thicker body than butterflies. Both butterflies and moths have their bodies and wings covered in scales. However, the arrangement and coloration of those scales differ across the order. Moths are active predominantly at night and rest during the day. They are nocturnal. To keep themselves safe from predators, they are often dull-colored, usually in shades of gray and brown, to camouflage themselves on bark, foliage, and other places where they rest during the day. There are exceptions to the rule, however. A good example is the hawk moth group, or Sphingidae, some species of which you can find actively sucking nectar from plants during the day. Moths that are active during the day tend to be more colorful. Look at this 9-spotted moth, which I captured on clematis in the middle of the day. It doesn't look like your typical moth, does it? We can generally think that darker, duller colors signal night activity, while day-active Lepidoptera have brighter colors. Butterflies are diurnal, which means they are active during the day. They are mostly brightly colored and patterned. Their coloration helps them to find a mate, camouflage amongst colorful flowers they're visiting, or even mimic other animals in order to be protected from predators. Look at this clear-winged moth that looks like a stinging wasp. Would it even cross your mind that this might be a moth? Some colors, especially red and orange, also signal poison to potential predators, so these butterflies are left alone. One example is the well-known monarch butterfly. When butterflies rest, their wings come together over their backs, unless they're basking in the sun. Oftentimes, you might see intriguing patterns on the undersides of their wings. On the other hand, moths rest in various ways, with their wings either spread out completely, folded alongside their bodies, tent-like over the back, or into a sort of triangular delta shape. Sometimes their shape at rest can be totally bizarre. This is probably to help them hide from predators. The last difference to mention is the one you will observe during development. Both moths and butterflies undergo complete metamorphosis, meaning they go from egg to larva to pupa before finally becoming an adult. The egg stage is similar in both butterflies and moths. Both groups are also called caterpillars in the larval stage, but when we get to pupae, we see a distinctive difference. Butterflies create a chrysalis, which either hangs down from a silk pad or sits upright using a silk girdle. Chrysalides can be beautifully ornamented, and some of them even look like they're painted with gold. That's not a coincidence, as the word chrysalis comes from the Greek word meaning gold. Moths create a cocoon, which is a sort of silk pouch that is spun by the caterpillar, often incorporating surrounding material. Look at these silkworm moth cocoons I saved from when I was rearing them. You can sometimes find moth cocoons attached to surfaces such as walls or branches. Even more frequently, moth pupae are naked. They have no cocoon around them and they develop in soil. Did you enjoy watching this video? Please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.